Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Desiree Duffy, and I am your host of the Books That Make You show. And today, we are talking about books that make you go from bibliophile to author. Yeah, it's not a secret. If you love books, chances are that you have a creative spirit, and you probably want to write books or maybe do something else that's creative. Dance, art, fashion, teaching, all of those things seem to be fed by a love of literature, doesn't it? Books, reading, a love for the story and how it's told. It's just often the launching pad for many brilliant careers. And that's the case with today's guest. Mandy Jackson-Beverly is such a person. She is a self-proclaimed bibliophile with a preference for stories that are drenched in magic, the occult, and in complex characters of both the human and the supernatural kind. She has not only authored several books, but she's also been a costume designer and a stylist, working with artists such as, get this, Be Still My Heart, Madonna, David Bowie, Diane Keaton, George Michael, Tina Turner. Trust me, that list goes on, and we'll ask her about that. But she's also been an art instructor. She is a writing coach, a speaker, and is a book reviewer for the New York Journal of Books. Plus, she's the VP of Education for the Ojai Evening Toastmasters. She's contributed to the Huffington Post and is a founding member of A Time to Speak, which is a speaker series focusing on subjects related to the environment and humanities. Wow, Mandy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great, Desiree. How are you? And thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here because you have just taken your love of books, like so many of us have, and transformed it into so many different creative outlets. So I want to start by talking about that. Now, you have several books under your belt. We have A Secret Muse, The Devil and the Muse, The Legend of Astrid R, Birth and the Immortal Muse. So let's talk a little bit about that because there's a muse theme going on here. And I think that relates to you and the fact that you've taken your love of books and you've transformed it into something creative and a passion that you have done in your career. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I feel that throughout my life, creativity has played a major role. And without it, when I'm not doing something creative, whether it be painting, writing, whatever it is, I'm not happy. And so I found the best thing to do is just to keep feeding that. And when I was teaching advanced placement art at a high school locally, and one night I was actually grading their AP art portfolios. So it was about 10:30 at night, and I was grading these, and I had art all around me. And I looked over at this easel and I put my hand out to the painting because it was just exquisite, this one girl had done. And I realized I had tears pouring down my cheeks. And I thought, what's this about? And I went, oh my God, these 18-year-olds, these young men and women are soon going to be leaving me and going off on their own. And they're no longer going to be in the safety of my art studio. And as we know, the world can be a cruel place sometimes, especially for creative people. Because I think if you have a vision or there's something that you want to do and you do it, chances are not everyone's going to like it. That's just not going to happen. And so when you're young and you're trying to understand that level of doubt and the fear that goes with it, it's really difficult. So what happened that night was I started to think, wouldn't it be great if there was someone in the world or an organization that protected creatives? And what if they had something, a gift that they could share with the world? wouldn't we need them right now? I mean, that would be great. So that's kind of how this whole series, the creative series, came about. And yeah, I'm a big believer in, I used to say to my students this: it's better out than in. In other words, if you've got an emotion, whether it's negative, positive, or anything, get it on canvas, get it on paper, get it on stage by acting out. There's so many different ways we can do it. So, or music, So that's
Oh,
about it.
absolutely. Okay, you've touched on a few things that I want to dig into. One of it, which is, okay, I know you review books. And so this idea of when an artist kind of bears their soul, it's such a place of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And the fact that this student's artwork brought you to tears because of that. So is that part of the reason why you review books as well?
The New York Journal of Books approached me a couple of years ago. It was when I was writing for blogs for the Huffington Post.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd often interview different authors. And I really learned a lot doing the reviews for them, because they give you a specific format. So you never write in first person. It's always, so it puts you back from the author and the story. And so what that's done for me is there's always something in a book that may not kind of grab you. But if you talk about that, then you absolutely have to go to the book, the part of the book, and say, this is why, or, give some form of helpful information, because too many people out there just go out there without, nobody knows who they are, and they just slam a book, or they say nice things about it without the backup to say why. And so this has really taught me about that. And yeah, I don't want to criticize anybody's work, but if I do see something that's I pick up on, I try to always give the reason why.
Yeah. I mean, the book review, or any kind of review, you could be reviewing somebody's dance or art. The critic, right? We always hear of the art critic or the film critic. It can be something that's really emotionally traumatic for somebody. And I find this a lot, and you probably do too, because you work as well as a writing coach. So when you're working with a new author or somebody who just put out their first book, sometimes you want to get those reviews early, or even find somebody who could be a beta reader, because sometimes those reviews are constructive and can help you learn and grow. And then on the flip side, sometimes you have to take the reviewer with a grain of salt. You were a professional reviewer. Like you said, you had a template. You had a certain way of doing it. And sometimes you have people that, unfortunately, maybe on Amazon or whatever, can be rather flippant or not very constructive in their reviews.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And once again, you do have to learn to be tough. You have to grow this skin, and it's just like water off a duck's back, and you have to get back up on that horse or back up on your chair and just keep riding. And you do become a better writer. The more books you write and the better editors you get, the stronger your writing skills are, and it just makes you a better writer. So even if your first book gets slammed, just keep writing, because the more you write, the better you get. And the better your editors, the stronger your book will be.
Yeah. And definitely use editors. Use more than one editor. I hear that a lot too. I hired an editor. My 8th grade English teacher helped me with it.
That's like fingernails down a chalkboard,
Yeah. And let's talk about that, because it's so important, I feel, for people who are just starting out as writers. And I want you to talk about your transition and how people can make that transition. But one of the things that I feel is important is hiring or bringing in editors that can help at the different stages. And that often means developmental, line editing, copy editing. Those are all different types of editing, right?
Absolutely. So for my work, for my particular writing, I have a team, a developmental editor, a line editor, and a copy editor or proofreader.
Mhm.
And then I have a team of beta readers. And that's something that grows with you. It took me about 4 editors before I found a line editor I could groove with. It's
Mhm.
really, really important. And so what I tell my students who come to me, they come to me with a full work in progress. It means it's pretty much finished, their first draft. And then we start working through it. And what I've found is I always say to them, I'm a developmental editor, so I'm going to make sure it's a bit like being on a set when you have a script supervisor. And the script supervisor says, okay, no, she went outside and she had a purse and she just come in. What's happened to her purse? So you make sure that there's continuity and flow, just as you make sure every character's voice is that character's voice. So if someone's reading through the dialogue, they can tell immediately, because of the way it's written, that they know specifically which character is speaking. All of those kinds of things I love. But as soon as I'm finished with it, it goes off to a line editor, because it's just totally different things. They are
Mhm.
totally different. And it costs a lot of money. You have to be prepared to have the money to do it. And it doesn't matter if you are thinking about self-publishing or indie publishing, hybrid or trad, you need to have that line edit. And some people will say, oh no, well, my mother's an English teacher or whatever, and she's looked at it and said it's fine. It's totally different writing, totally different editing. And these people are trained to know, and plus editing changes. So what
Mm.
might have been hip 10 years ago isn't the norm now. So your book is going to look dated if you use that kind of editing. So yeah, I'm a stickler for books that have been edited. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
goes
And
without saying.
and nothing against the English teachers out there, by the way.
No, hey, I was too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I majored in English, so it's
yeah,
not. But it is. It's a totally different skill
yeah.
set, and recognizing that is so important. So, tell me, what bit of advice? What do you tell somebody who's transitioning and is just starting out as a writer? What are some words of wisdom that you would give to them?
Write from your heart. Don't let anyone tell you that, and I'm probably going to get blasted for this. I don't believe in writing to market. I think it's really great. A lot of indies do it because they make a lot of money from it. But I think if you really are serious about the heart and soul of writing, then you need to write from your heart and your soul. And you need to get that on paper no matter what, and just let it flow. Just keep writing. It doesn't matter how crappy it is, or that you think, oh, I just no one's going to read this, because it's about getting the story out. And when you get the story out, then you've got something to work with. And half of it's going to be gone in the end anyway, and you'll be adding more stuff. But that is the most important thing. And one thing I think is really helped me, and I've got a few students who do this, I suggest if you're having trouble getting started, write a piece of poetry. Because think about the theme that you're writing and then just write random. It doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about rhyming poem or anything like that. Just write a poem about what you're feeling and what the theme is about what you want to write about. You will be amazed how that gets you into the groove and the flow of actually getting started writing. I think it's really important. Yeah.
That's really great advice. I like that. And especially you, as somebody who is very creative in different ways, do you find too that tapping into one creative avenue helps with the others? For example, if you're looking at artwork, does that help inspire your muse to write? If you start dancing, does that help in other ways?
Absolutely. In fact, here's another. I'm a Jungian. I love the Jungian philosophy, and one of the philosophies there is to journal your dreams. And I've been doing this for about 26 years now, and
Mm-hmm.
it really helps you to get an understanding of this other side, and you get to understand how the mind works a little bit. One thing that Jung used to say was wonderful for creatives, and this is something I've done, is to paint your dreams. And I've taken this a step further, and I paint my characters, or I paint the locations. It doesn't matter about perfection, or, they can be realistic if you want, or any way you want to paint. You can sketch, paint, whatever you want to do. The other thing to do is get clay and start figuring out like how someone's face looks with clay, or just taking photos. I mean, I take photos. I think at the last count on my phone, and one of my sons just downloaded, I had 21,000 photos on my phone. It was ridiculous. So, and most of them were because, wherever I am, I'm taking photos, and I look back and, oh, that tree is so cool. Like I could use that. That gives me the image to write something about. So, or a little bit of water on a leaf or something. So yeah, all of that is really important. Whatever you can do. I know that when I was teaching, it's a little off track, but it's not really. I homeschooled my kids for about 6 years before they went off to regular school. And one of them needed a little bit of extra help. So what I did is every time I would teach him, say, a letter or trying to teach him to read, we would make cookies using the alphabet. We would eat the cookies. We would finger paint the letters. Anything that I could do to use anything, all of the senses. That is how you absorb that information. And I think this is true about writing. And that's why I love to paint. And that's why I encourage people to write poetry or paint or dance or sing or write a piece of music. It is really important that you understand that you fully are drenched in your characters. That's why, getting onto another subject about writing, before you start writing, just write a little, I've got cards for character cards. And I also now have like a 150-page Word doc full of my characters, because I do have a lot of characters. And I know, their sexual preferences, what they like to drink, what they like to eat, where they like to go for holiday. And what that does for a writer, it gives you the information so that when those characters put you in a predicament, you know how they're going to handle it. It's like an instinct that just kicks in. So that is why the more information you can get about your characters, your locations, anything. And that's another reason Pinterest is really handy too. So yeah, I mix all those creative elements up.
There's so many great ideas there, and you absolutely nailed it. Giving characters that background and giving them a history, even just writing something in their voice, writing about their summer vacation in their voice or a past experience, because all of that can come through on the page. Yeah. And it can even inspire the story in ways that you never imagined possible, and just really flesh it out.
Yeah, it's amazing how you'll be walking along and you'll think, okay, I think I've got it in my head how this scene is going to go. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, one of them comes by those characters and they've got you in a different direction. Yeah. And you go in that direction and it just morphs into something exquisite.
Exactly.
But most of the time, if you know your characters and you let them go into their area, they just take you on a great trip. That's the way the story has to go.
They absolutely do. So let's dig into your writing a little bit. Now, you tend to dig into some darker supernatural themes. Can you tell us a little bit about your books?
Sure. I write about this in the author's notes in the final book, which is The Immortal Muse. What happened is this. I always read, newspapers or magazines, whatever I can get my hands on. And a few years ago, there was an article in the New York Times or the Washington Post, it was one of those, about Latino girls missing in DC. And it bothered me that I couldn't find a lot on this subject. And I decided that sometimes people who need to know about these stories aren't always going to be reading a newspaper. And I wanted people to understand that this is going on. And so I wrote The Devil in the Muse specifically based on the fact that girls were missing. And so I took that story and wound it around supernatural characters because that allowed me to go really dark. And also, like I said, it picked up some other readers who might not normally read this. Now, The Immortal Muse was based around a story that I had read about young women who had been raped as young girls, and they were pregnant, and then they were forced into marriage. Now, this is not uncommon. This happens in the States a lot, in different parts of America, different states. And I read a few stories by the women who had come out and spoke about this. And it upset me so much. I thought, okay, I have to write about this. So that's what I wrote about, taking it into a really dark place.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's a chance to get these stories out, because journalists do a great job, and it's no use writing about something when they have spent months and months and months researching and interviewing people. But to be able to put it into a story just gives you that extra depth, and you can add darker characters. Mind you, there's a lot of really dark forms of humanity out there. But this, for me, I'm able to write about it.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. I hope that explains it to you.
Yeah, and you're shining a light on something, like you said, stories, situations, what's happening in our world, to a different audience, because like you said, not everybody is necessarily reading these same articles. And especially sometimes what happens with minorities and people of color is their stories in the news sometimes don't get told the way other people's stories get told. So bringing that to light, I mean, I applaud you for doing that. That's a magnificent thing to do. Yeah.
Writing about the darkness and understanding, psychopaths and sociopaths and all these different forms of mental disease, or how people have been raised, or what makes it happen. Is it external, internal? It's incredible. And I think it's M. Scott Peck writes a lot about that. And so I do tend to do a lot of research about human behavior. It's not always pretty. It takes you down to a really dark place. And when you're doing that, I hike a lot. So for me, that gets me out in nature, and I'm able to write about stuff that, takes you into a really dark place.
Right, exactly. Well, let's transition over to something that's a little bit brighter. One of the things that's fascinating about you is you've also worked in the world of fashion and costume design. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, growing up, I think in Australia, I always, did part-time fashion jobs, selling whatever it was, whatever I could get my hands on, because I love fashion. And so when I went to England, I was working at a place called Browns of South Molton Street. And at that stage in the 80s, we'd all go together to big clubs, and all these 80s bands would just be there, and everybody dancing, and you'd have hairstylists doing crazy things or putting wigs on you. It was fantastic, so much fun. And then I came from there and came to LA. And while I was at Brown's, a lot of people like Mick Jagger and all these people would come in there. And so you kind of got friends, not friends, but you knew them. Like if they'd come into the store and they'd want you to help them, then you would. So one time I was at Maxfield Blue, which is in LA, and people would come in, and then you kind of kept talking to them. And another time at that stage, I started to work at Olivia Newton-John's store, which she had on Melrose. It was called Koala Blue. And some of the guys from, I can't think of the name of the band. Who did, what's his name? I can't. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, he came in. I'd met him in England, looked after him in England. He came in, and so we were just helping him with clothes. Next thing I knew, my roommate was British, and she was a hairstylist. And she called me and said, listen, they need a costume designer on this video. We're doing it for Sheena Easton, and I think you could do it. I think you'd be great. I said, I've never done anything like that. She said, you'll be great. So I shopped and did all this stuff, met with the producer and everything. And I ended up working for a while with her. And then that led on to, the gentleman, I think it was Steve Barron, directed her video. And then I worked with him and then got to work with all these other people. And then so whether it was the director that hooked you up with someone or the producer, or then you work for the client and then they want to hire you again, which is what happened with David Bowie. And so it was just fantastic. I loved it. And it's really good because working on a film set, teaches you how to work as part of a team like nothing else ever will.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're on a really, at one stage I was working with the Coen brothers, and they're fantastic. And they hire people because they know you can do your job, whether it's in the art department or, lighting, camera, costumes, hair, makeup. So when you get hired to do your job, they don't really interfere. They'll say if they hate something, but because you're a
Right.
professional, you're not going to get something that you think they're going to hate. So that was the joy, and leaving it at that stage was really great because I had worked with some of the best people, and not all of the best people are famous, but they were very kind and they were so creative. And also in the 80s and the early 90s, oh my God, the industry, the video industry and the music industry.
Oh,
film,
yeah. That's when
it was
music
fantastic.
videos were,
Oh my
at the
God.
peak.
Yeah. I mean, you remember we'd finish a video and then we'd be told when it was going to come out. We'd race home to MTV and you'd be waiting for it, because it's all changed now. But it was really, really fun. And I learned so much and grew so much. And that's where I met my husband. So it was fantastic. Yeah.
There you go. So tell us what we can look forward to in the future. Are there more books? Are you doing any writing workshops? What's going on in your world?
Okay, a lot is going on right now. And so I have a memoir I'm working on. I also have another spin-off series to the creative series. I'm working on a TV series with a historian and an art historian.
Is that all you can say?
Yeah,
you
it
got a little
is.
evasive on us. I understand.
I'm sorry. It's based on art, my passion. And so, yeah, but it's wonderful. I think it's going to be I'm really enjoying working on it. And I have a podcast coming up. And I'm basically, I have students. So I'm not so much doing workshops right now, unless it's through a conference. Because I am working one-on-one with just a few people right now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, just a couple of clients is enough to get to, I don't want to bombard myself, because giving all that focus onto one or two students with their books is a lot. And I have to really be interested in what they've got to say before I agree to take them on. And so one of the ones I have right now is fantastic. And one of the other girls just got signed a trad deal. So it's exciting. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's so rewarding when somebody that you've worked with and helped coach, when they start succeeding, it's like the little babies leaving the nest and branching out.
What that's like, right? You know what it's like to guide people, and then you watch them and you think, oh, wow, off you go.
Exactly. Okay. Where can people find out more about you online, your website, social media?
Sure. MandyJackson-Beverly.com. If you go there, links to all of my social media are there. I mainly am on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I am on all of them, but I kind of like those three. Although I've been a bit slack lately, I must say, Desiree. When you're working on something, it's kind of like, oh my God, I've got to post. But anyway, they're my favorites. And where else? Oh, you can find me on Teachable. The Story Hound on Teachable, and also the Story Hound is my other website for my classes and also for developmental writing coaching. All of those links are actually on the Mandy Jackson-Beverly one too. So you can go there and search around and you'll find me. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yes. Your website is very user-friendly. And of course, information about your books are there, which I'm sure people can also find probably on Amazon and every place that they can find.
Yeah. Yes, everywhere. And you can also buy them, the ebooks, through me personally if you go to my website. And you should be able to get them through bookshop.org or anywhere you want to get them.
Excellent. Mandy Jackson-Beverly, thank you so much for being here today. This was a delightful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate you too.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for being here today on the Books That Make You show. And you can find out more about us. Just come to our website. That's booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where you might be watching this show right now. But if you're not, if you're listening to it, head over to the YouTube channel and you can not only watch this interview, but you can check out all of these other interviews that we have on the Books That Make You show. Until next time, please, all of my bibliophiles, enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.